Welcome back to the next section of learning module number 2. Again, we're going through the spreadsheets video by video because there's a lot of information here. So in this short video, we're going to be talking about vehicle costs. So Hank, please take it away.
Great. Well, thank you. I'm glad to be back. We've talked about labor costs. We'll talk about vehicle costs now. And again, this is an example. The spreadsheets formulas work, but you need to truly get together with your accounting folks to figure out if this is what your vehicle costs would be. There's some assumptions plugged in here. So anyway, whenever you're trying to think of vehicle costs, you got to try to break it down to hourly costs. And so before we get into all of that, let's talk about available hours. So we're right up here in this box in the corner, and available hours in 1 year. So if you just take 40 hours a week times 52 weeks a year, that's 2,080 hours. Simple. But now you have to subtract from that all of the things that are non-productive hours. So everybody gets vacation. Now, with tradespeople, they pay into a vacation fund. That vacation fund might equate to, depending on what they're making, might equate to 3 weeks of vacation, 2 weeks of vacation, 4 weeks of vacation. I base this on 4 weeks of vacation. Now, somebody might say, oh, nobody takes 4 weeks of vacation. It doesn't matter what they take or don't take. You've got to be a little bit on the conservative side when you figure this out. I based it on 4 weeks. You can base it on whatever you want to base it on, but I want to be conservative. Sick days. So I said, 5 sick days a year. Is that the right number? I don't know. Again, be conservative. It's better to be conservative because the more conservative you are, the higher hourly cost for the vehicle, which means if you don't work as many hours, you still might be a little bit on the covered side. So 5 sick days a year. Holidays. Again, it's different for everybody else. And keep this in mind. You might have a tradesperson working for you that you negotiated something above and beyond the CBA. Maybe you said, hey, I'll give you 4 weeks of paid vacation, or I'll give you an extra holiday, whatever the case might be. It doesn't matter. You've got to figure out vacations, sick days, holidays. What does that come out to? And come up with a number of, in this case, 1,824 productive hours they can actually be working. Now, you would say, wow, that's crazy. Some people work 2,000 hours. I get that. But the bottom line is some people only work 1,500 hours a year. And so, because maybe you weren't that busy and they're not working and they're in a vehicle. And so, again, that's not that crazy of a number of 1,824. You want to make life simple, you can call it 1,800 hours a year. The fact remains is the total hours available of 2,080 gets reduced by vacation, sick days, holidays, etc., to come up with the number you want to use. So I'm using 1,824. That's how I did it. Total hours available in a year. Now you get into crystal ball time. Okay, I'm starting a business. How many miles a year am I going to drive? Now, I will tell you that this depends on where you're located geographically. When I worked in Milwaukee, we could pretty much be pretty close to around 25,000 miles a year. But I will tell you, if you're in a remote area of the country or the state, you could easily do 40,000 miles a year. You're going to have to guess at this number a little bit until you have a track record. Now, if you have a track record, so if you're taking over a new business, go look at when the vehicle was put in service and how many years it was in service and how many miles you went. You'll be able to figure out very quickly, oh, these guys claim they're only going 25,000 miles a year, but they're really going 35,000 miles a year. Or the other way, oh, they think it's 25,000, but it's really only 15,000. So this is an important number because we're going to use this number to start to calculate things. Now, gas. I use $3 a gallon. Is that the right number? Well, it may not be the right number where you are. You might say, well, I'm not paying $3. I'm paying $2.50. I get that. You don't want to be short with this number, though. This is one place where you want to make sure you've got the right calculation, and I'm going to do this for vehicles per mile or vehicle miles per gallon. I'm using 12. Again, these are just crystal ball numbers I've plugged in. Are they way off the mark? Absolutely not way off the mark. They might be pretty darn close, might be light, might be heavy. Again, better to be a little bit on the higher side, because here's what happens. Let's just pick gas prices. Gas prices go up and they go down. You don't want to calculate something on the first month of the year, and 3 months into the year, gas prices go up, and all of a sudden you're short 50 cents a gallon on when you calculated this, which could be a problem over time. And it's easier to do this once a year and be a little on the heavy side than it is to, oh, I'm going to every 3 months, I'm going to recalculate what my vehicle costs. That's crazy. You got more important stuff to do than that. So I based it on this. Now, cost to purchase a vehicle. Is this the right number? I don't know. It all depends on the vehicle you're buying. If you're buying a fancy vehicle, $25,000 isn't going to cover it. If you're buying a pickup truck, maybe it will cover it. If you're buying a heavy duty van, maybe it will cover it. You got to kind of like do a little research on this one. This isn't that hard to do. It all depends on what you're purchasing and what that number would be. Keep this in mind. It might be nice to put all these bells and whistles on these vehicles. Once you do that, it's hard to take it away. And you now, if you want to spend $40,000 or $50,000 for a pickup truck, guess what? You've got that truck for the next 4 years minimum. And so it's costing you some money to spend that kind of cash for a vehicle. Okay, cost to lease a vehicle, I used $6,000. So I based that on a $25,000 vehicle. So that's going to cost me $500 a month or $3.29 an hour just to lease the vehicle. Nothing else. No gas, no maintenance, nothing. Then I've got insurance. Don't forget insurance. You got to pay for that. It's a cost. So I'm saying it's going to cost me $1,000 a year for insurance. Now, I will tell you this. Once you start to add tradesmen, and let's say you start off with 1 or 2 people, and 3 years down the road, you now have 10. You hire somebody who's got a poor driving record. They got moving violations, maybe they got a DUI, whatever. Watch this number go up dramatically. You need to kind of be aware of that. Whenever we hired tradespeople and gave them a vehicle, we did a background check, which is legal as can be. I needed to know if this was a problem, because sometimes if I hired somebody and they had a bad driving record, if we didn't catch it, my insurance company would catch it. And all of a sudden, $1,000 is $5,000 to insure them. So you got to make a decision at that point. Are they really worth an extra 20, 30, 40, 50% or 100% more in insurance costs? Because it adds up. So my insurance is costing me 55 cents an hour. Fuel. Okay, so this is just a calculation, right? If I'm going 25,000 miles a year and it's costing me $3 a gallon, I run a calculation and my fuel is costing me $3.43 per hour for that person based on all of the information we've looked at so far. Now, keep this in mind. You slow down and all of a sudden you thought you were working 18, 24 hours a year and it drops to 1,200, you are not covering the cost of that vehicle. And that's just the way it works. And so that can sometimes impact how your business does. On the other hand, if you get really, really, really busy and everybody's putting in overtime and they're working 1,900 to 2,000 hours a year, well, guess what? Then you're more than covered from that standpoint. Maintenance. So I have $1,000 in here for maintenance. Now, this number will fluctuate based on how long you drive that vehicle. The longer you drive it, this number is going to go up. Think about this. You blow a transmission on a heavy duty pickup truck or van, you'll blow through thousands of dollars just to replace that transmission, or you blow the engine, or you've got major brake problems constantly, or a variety of different things, brake cylinders, etc. So this is based on a new vehicle. If it's a used vehicle and you decide, well, I bought the vehicle instead of leasing it, and I'm going to drive it until the wheels fall off, that number of maintenance will go up significantly. Also, keep this in mind. When you think of a lease, don't think of it as 10,000 miles a year. You can make a lease whatever you want it to be. You can make a lease 25,000 miles a year. It'll cost you more money for the lease, but don't get hung up like, oh, a lease is only 10,000 or 12,000 miles a year. That's not the case. You can work with a leasing company. They'll tell you, we'll make the lease whatever you want. You just pay for that lease, and they can make it any length they want it. So we used to make a lease. I think we used to do 25,000 miles a year, and we would do like a 4-year lease to try to look for that point where that makes sense. The people to talk to are leasing agents for vehicles. They have them. You can go to a dealership and they'll get you connected, and your accountants to make sure what makes the most sense for your business from that standpoint. So vehicle maintenance includes oil changes, tire changes, brakes, AC service, transmission, engine. Costs go up the longer you hold the vehicle. So consequently, we started off with, hey, I got this vehicle and I'm up to almost $8 an hour for that vehicle. So if you think about it, if somebody works 1,800 hours and you're at $8 an hour, it's a big number. It's not a little number. Vehicles are expensive. When people say, well, I got to have a vehicle, which happens particularly on the service side, I got to have a vehicle and I want to be paid over scale. It's a big number and it adds up very quickly from that perspective. The other thing we did at one point, which you can't really do right now, is all of our non-tradespeople that were driving company vehicles. So this is salespeople or project managers. We were buying used vehicles because we could get them at one time a lot cheaper than a new vehicle. You get like a $20,000 vehicle or $25,000 vehicle, buy it with a year or two of, maybe it's got 25,000 miles on it or whatever the case might be. You might be able to get it for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 less from that standpoint. It's not the case today. Vehicles, you have to look at it based on what the economic conditions are, because sometimes it makes more sense to buy the vehicle versus leasing it. Sometimes it makes more sense to get a used vehicle versus a new vehicle. It kind of varies from that standpoint. Okay, let's just recap this. We've covered trade labor cost in a previous recording. Now we've looked at vehicle cost. We're going to put this on pause, let you kind of absorb all of this, and we're going to come back with a new recording on non-bargaining employee cost, and we'll talk about that.
Okay, great.